Hi everyone, it is Patricia Daly here. You might remember me from almost exactly a year ago actually. I was talking to you as well when it was St. Patrick's Day, and today is the 16th of March and it's Paddy's weekend again. So I'm very honoured and delighted to be invited back in here to talk to you, and because I realised that today is also World Sleep Day, I decided to talk a little bit about sleep. But just before introducing myself, I am a nutritional therapist, a registered nutritional therapist as we have to call ourselves now. I have been practicing for quite a while now, and for anybody listening to the video from a year ago, you will hear a bit more about my story. I am a two-time cancer survivor. I had an ocular melanoma, so a tumour sitting in the eyeball of my right eye, and I had treatment and everything, and it was really through the ketogenic diet that I managed to actually stay stable. So I have been in remission now for, goodness, it's a good 8 years, and I've been doing really well, and I'm still very much interested and following low carb and sometimes ketogenic approach. So it obviously has changed a lot since I was diagnosed and since I was in a very strict ketosis. So things change over time, and what I have realized as well for me being on a low carb lifestyle in the long term, and I saw actually just recently Dr. Westman was talking about that as well. You know, is it actually possible? Is it realistic to follow a low carb lifestyle long term? And yeah, it very much is, but you constantly have to tweak, you constantly have to adapt your protocols, your lifestyle and what you eat. I think it's very important to always tune in. We change, our bodies change, our environment changes, so we might move somewhere else and we can start from scratch, or we're faced with new challenges, or we change job, or we have a family member that has a diagnosis, or there's always lots of things that life throws our way. And for me, I guess in recent times it really was all the stress associated with the publication of our book that Dominique Kemp and I published. It's 2 years ago now. It's the Ketogenic Kitchen, and it's basically it is a cookbook, and it also describes our journey. But the backlash we've had here was really, really strong, and it's ongoing. So even 2 years later, last Wednesday on prime time here on Irish TV, I got another little stab in the back, basically. So it's never going to end, and I have had to really adapt to that kind of stressor that is coming my way all the time, and that is completely out of my control. And when I look at my glucose measurements, my sleep, and how it's affected me, it's really amazing actually how it's not only food that has a big impact on our glucose levels, on our ketone levels. And for anybody who is following a low carb lifestyle, you might be keeping an eye, even just from time to time, doing some spot checks, or you might be measuring on a regular basis, especially if you are following the carbohydrate restricted diet for therapeutic purposes. Like for me, there's still this element there, of course. I'm always going to be on my toes, having had cancer twice. So there's so many different things that I would like to talk to you about, but I think because it's World Sleep Day today, I thought I'd start with sleep and how it can really affect our wellness, how it can affect not only our glucose levels, it can affect our immune system, it can affect the ability to get rid of toxins in our body, to the whole biotransformation. It can affect our level of insulin resistance. So there is a study that shows that if we have a poor night's sleep, which actually, especially being a mom, it does happen when the kids are sick, for instance, or when our mind is turning and we just don't get into deep sleep and it's very broken sleep, that the next day you probably will feel that you are going a little bit more for the sweet stuff or caffeine as well. So that could be also a reason that because you are going into temporary insulin resistance, that you are grabbing those foods a little bit more than if you've had a good night's sleep. So there are lots of things that happen when we sleep, and there are lots of things that happen if we don't sleep properly. So in 2007, the World Health Organization actually classified night shift work, in other words, a broken circadian rhythm. So if somebody has to constantly adjust, and maybe sometimes they have to work during the day, sometimes during the night, they classified that type of work as a probable carcinogen. And I think that says it all now. And I'm always surprised that not more medical professionals actually tackle sleep, or at least talk about it. Because also looking at statistics, I don't know them off the top of my head anymore, but for anybody, feel free to go and dig. Apparently in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, we slept a significant amount more than we do now. I mean, it really went from something like 8 hours to, on average, a lot of people only get about 6 hours. And that clearly for most people isn't enough. And also for children, it looks like statistically the amount of sleep they're getting has decreased significantly. And you wonder what impact that has, because we do know as well how sleep affects the immune system. So disrupted sleep or chronic sleep deprivation can lead to a decreased amount of white blood cells, for instance, as well. Or also, talking about melatonin and talking about all, the circadian hormones that fluctuate during the day. So melatonin is being produced in the evening when we are starting to wind down, when it's getting dark, especially as well. And melatonin is very, very strong antioxidant endogenously, so in our bodies produced. And it's obviously, from a cancer perspective, incredibly important. And that's why a lot of cancer patients, they supplement melatonin as well. So it's important to talk to your doctor or oncologist about this if you are interested in this topic. There's lots of associations with serotonin as well, melatonin, serotonin, how we feel mentally, how our mental health is affected by sleep. And so that's why I was talking about light. I actually have these guys here for the evening. When I work in the evening on the computer, I have F-Lux installed. But I also use these when I watch TV, for instance, in the evening. And especially for me with my eyes, because they are much more susceptible to any kind of issue. I have to be very careful. Plus, it blocks the blue light and it helps melatonin production, and then also my sleep. There's lots of other things, and I was talking about glucose, and recently I was talking to a colleague who keeps a very, very tight, close eye on his glucose levels, and especially his fasting glucose. And he said to me that poor sleep, or even if he's gone to bed too late, or whatever, sometimes we do go out, we have a social life, but his glucose levels in the morning are clearly affected by the quality and quantity of his sleep. And that if it's a really bad night, glucose levels can be up to 1 millimole per litre higher. So for anybody who is diabetic or who knows a bit about glucose levels and tracks those, knows that's a massive increase. So it's just to bear this in mind, that it's not just the food we eat that has an impact on glucose levels. And sometimes I think, looking at low carb forums or ketogenic forums, it's so focused on food only and diet only and macronutrients, whereas there are just so many other things that we need to keep an eye on. And also in terms of course, our emotional well-being, and for children, as I mentioned earlier, for tissue repair, tissue growth, sleep is absolutely crucial. So what else can you do to get better sleep? And there's probably going to be lots of discussions today, because it is the World Sleep Day, but I just want to share a few of my own experience as well. And because I have recently, not just in the last 1 year or two, but I have put a lot more importance on my sleep and tracking my sleep. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. Me, for instance, I use the the Aura Ring, and but there's lots of other ones. Do your research and go for what suits you. And it's not that I want to get obsessed with measuring things or being constantly analytical and checking everything out that is going on in my body, but I still find it really, really helpful to identify patterns and to just make me aware, okay, if I do this, and if I can make some small tweaks, it can have a big impact. So like the timing of my last meal, there we go again with food. So how it impacts sleep. So the timing of my last meal, and also in terms of the macros, actually, it has a little bit of an impact on the quality of my sleep, more so than the quantity. So in terms of deep sleep, for instance, that has a big impact. So if I eat really late and go to bed, say, an hour after I've had a pretty decent meal, I can almost be sure that my deep sleep just won't be happening, or it won't be happening to the same extent as it does when I leave at least 3 hours. So that's usually what I recommend to my clients as well, to leave a gap of at least 3 hours between the last meal and going to bed. And then of course also, and for me that's absolutely crucial, and it's so interesting to see the correlation, so the links between what is going on, basically the life load. If I run around all day long and I don't take breaks, I am unable to switch off, which sometimes happens when I'm firefighting or when I am involved in some media conflict. And it's so interesting, if I don't drastically do something to really switch off my mind, and sometimes I'm simply unable to do so, I admit, it really affects my sleep. It doesn't just affect my deep sleep. I've also seen that my body temperature can be affected, but also my resting heart rate. So if I have a lot going on and I'm anxious about certain things, and I'm not kidding now, my resting heart rate is usually about 46, it goes up to 58. And that's really significant. And again, that has a whole impact on my metabolism, on my overall well-being. And so, really taking steps when this is happening, when I see this, that, okay, my resting heart rate, my deep sleep, and also my heart rate variability, which is also measured, but you don't need to buy an Aura Ring to measure that. There's apps like, for instance, HRV for training that allows you to do that with the camera of your phone. And it's such a brilliant indicator of your stress response and how well you're able to switch between the parasympathetic nervous system that makes us nice and relaxed and able to switch off, and the sympathetic nervous system, which is sort of the fight or flight. And there are days where I'm just fight or flight, and then my heart rate variability definitely shows that that's what's going on. So these are really, I think, very simple tools that don't allow me to, it's not there to become obsessed with certain things, or to just, it's not that I constantly look at my Aura Ring or my sleep or whatever. It's really more about patterns, and I want to make that very clear, and getting to know yourself, because again, I can't emphasize it enough, we are all different. We all react differently to food, we all react differently to stressors, we all react differently to different environments, and some thrive and some don't. And I think for us to really find out what our triggers are, both in the environment and for us ourselves, based on, our lives and our past lives and what we've all gone through, it is so important. And nobody can ever teach you that except yourself, by looking at certain factors and looking at certain things that are going on in your life. So what I also found interesting actually is what affects my sleep is timing of exercise. So if I go and have a really intense session in the evening, so I used to be a triathlete, and I trained about 15-20 hours a week, and quite often those sessions were in the evening, the really intense sessions. and it always affected my sleep, and it still does. And when I do intense things in the evening, it's simply going to affect my sleep. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to do all my intense exercise, so high intensity interval training, for instance, or I mainly do swimming these days. I try to do it in the morning or at the latest in the early afternoon. And it probably also is really a good idea if you look at our hormones, our circadian rhythm. So looking at cortisol, it tends to go highest, which is one of our stress hormones. It tends to go highest about an hour after we get up. So why not take advantage of this? Because glucose will probably go up a little bit as well. Take advantage of this and do our high intensity then, as opposed to doing it in the evening. And just do relaxing things in the evening, whatever rocks your boat. I'm, not great at meditation. I know it's a big buzzword and everybody seems to meditate. I definitely need help. I need something like Headspace, which is an app if I do meditation, but it can be really anything that helps you switch off. So some people like journaling, some people just like writing, or some people like doing a bit of yoga or a bit of movement. Others, they grab their cat and dog and cuddle with them, or they read a book that helps them wind down. So really it's not about prescribing meditation for everyone, but it's just finding what works for you to just give your mind a break. And it can only be for even 4 or 5 minutes. And if you can do that during the day, even having those little breaks, that's even better, of course. The more you can incorporate that in your day, even just focusing on your breath for a minute, or doing something that makes you really happy and relaxed, then that's absolutely brilliant. So and actually, just one last thing. I was talking about light and the glasses in the evening. Also very important is exposure to natural light, preferably again in the morning. So it's just giving all these signals to your body. It's the day now. It's time to move. It's time to be active. It's time to get up. And one of the best things really is to expose your eyes to bright light, and I don't mean looking into the computer. I really mean ideally going out and looking at the sun if it's there. Unfortunately, here in Ireland, it's not very common that it's there in the morning, but it's still bright in the sky, and just getting this light and signaling, giving the signals to your body that it is the day now. And that helps again with the exercise and winding down in the evening. It really helps with your circadian rhythm to make it just work as best as possible for you, all those circadian hormones. So I think that's pretty much, a lot of points covered when it comes to sleep. And as you see, whenever you talk about something, a lifestyle factor, there's lots of other things influencing it as well. You can never just look at one thing in isolation. And I think that's the whole fascination of the human body and the mind and how we all work. And that's why I guess sometimes people are surprised when they come to me as a nutritional therapist and I talk about all those things. I talk about sleep, I talk about movement and exercise, I talk about hydration, very important as well, and things like relationships and networks, because they're all essential parts of our health. And it's not just about food and macronutrients and all of this. And as much as that's, of course, very much a priority for a lot of people, but it's not everything. And there's a lot you can do by, going back to some basics and implementing some of the things that I've been talking about. And I think it's not an effort, it's knowledge. And that's what sometimes really gets me, when people deserve to have this knowledge and they can make a really big difference in their lives. And it's not a big effort to actually, install F-Lux on your computer or get those glasses or go out in the morning and, look out in the sky. And it's just all about knowledge and adapting your routine accordingly. And it can make a really big impact on your energy and just health and well-being. So I hope you got loads out of this, and we can probably put a link as well to my to last year's YouTube if you want to know more about my story, or you can obviously go on my website as well, patriciadaly.com, to learn more about me and my work. And if you enjoyed this video and if you enjoy this channel, then please don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on anything that's going on. There's loads of great people always talking and sharing their knowledge and experience and expertise. So yeah, it was a pleasure having a chat today, and I wish you all a brilliant weekend. I know there's Paddy's festivals and celebrations going on all over the world, and I hope you get to switch off and have a good sleep tonight. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Okay, bye.